Sarita with Everything Homemade, and I have been wanting to do this film for a while. I think about 5 days. Every single time I took my tripod, my camera, everything to film, what happened?
It rained.
It rained. It didn't just rain. It poured. I mean, it was like, nope, you're not filming today. Nope, you're not filming this hour. So I let the weather do its thing, and we've had some really warm rains, but yesterday was quite cool and it rained all day. So today's like one of the first sunny days that we have, and we've got a ton to do. So in this particular episode, number 14, we are going to do an update on a little gosling that was born. If you remember the video about 3 to 4 weeks ago, we put eggs underneath the goose. So I'm going to do a little update there. I'm going to also, then we're going to dive into the garden. We're going to plant peppers today. We're going to put the shelves on the pumpkin racks today. We're going to do a complete garden update, and let me tell you, what happened with that rain, Ocean, with the plants in the garden?
They grew like crazy.
You will be shocked how much they grew. So the last time you saw the garden update, it's been a week and 4 days. So you will be absolutely shocked when you see the garden. And the last thing we're going to go over is how to weed your beds. Now, we have been weeding in the rain, which got our hands really cold, but it was a necessity for the plants, especially the red beets, because they're so small and the weeds were growing so much faster. But we left a section to show you how we did it and a good method in getting rid of all these weeds quickly, so you're not there weeding each row and it takes you like 5 hours a row. So we're going to cover a lot. This video is going to be longer because I'm going to smash all this into one video, because as the Weather Network says, we have about 3 days of sun. That doesn't give us a lot of time, and we need to just buckle down, get it done, and we're going to do it all today. The other thing is, if you don't know already, that I am an author to a new series out called A Heart's Journey. The first book is Heart's Cry, and here's a little blurb about the book. Heart's Cry is a courageous, action-filled love story between two intelligent doctors, both battling past traumas of their own. With the life-altering change of events, can they push aside their own barriers and make it through together? If you would like to purchase the first book, Heart's Cry, in the series, it's a clean action romance, perfectly suited to your teens and to adults. You can definitely check out the links in the description box, and you can order it from Amazon. And there's also other links in the description box if you want to join me on Twitter, join me on Facebook, join me on Amazon, on my author page on Facebook. Everything is in the description box below. So let's dive in to the first thing on our agenda today is this little gosling. Can I say hi? Hi! You want to say hi to the camera? Take a look. This little gosling was hatched only 2 days ago. He is so cute. So the story behind this is the mother goose was sitting on 10 eggs. She pushed out 9 of the eggs eventually through the 3-week period. They're really smart. They weren't viable, so which is really disappointing. But there was 1 egg left, and to my calculation, she should have hatched on Wednesday, on June 10th. But by the time Saturday came, she was sitting on the nest, but the egg wasn't hatching. So we grabbed the egg, and you can hold the egg and just lightly tap, and you should hear peeping noises if the goose is alive in the egg. And we could hear it. And so I gave her 1 more day, and that is 4 days over what I have calculated when this little gosling should have hatched. So what I did was on the Sunday, my husband and I said, no, you know what? We are going to take that egg because she isn't sitting enough. She's going out to eat and then coming back to sit, then going out to eat and coming back to sit. She needs to sit on that egg completely to raise the humidity and that heat and to soften the shell. Now there's a very happy chicken behind me saying, I laid an egg, I laid an egg. We hear you, miss. Good job. Anyway, so we took that egg and I had an incubator already on lockdown for turkeys, meaning that it was already locked down for hatching. So I slipped the goose egg into that incubator because they both require the same humidity. And that night, it pipped. Monday morning, it hatched. And this little gosling was hatched. So he's gonna go join his turkey friends because I have 7 turkeys that hatched, and he's gonna join them. And when he's big enough, I'm going to release him, and the geese will just take him under their wings, and he will have mama right back. Are you ready to see him, friends? Oh, there you go. There you go, buddy. So now Ocean and I are in our orchard. Now instead of planting the peppers into the garden, we have a space where we're growing blackberries, but half of that particular bed is open right now, and we're not adding in the new soil until September hits. So it is just an open, empty spot at the moment. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna plant in our peppers in pots. Then we are going to take the rebar loop from the zucchini and the plastic, and we're going to transfer it over to this bed on this side, and we're going to make that same tent design over the peppers to basically to set up a simple and easy greenhouse. Now I'm going to do this method until my husband builds me a greenhouse like he did in our previous home. We just haven't got there yet. So for right now, we're going to plant our peppers in pots for a couple of reasons. One, they are so sensitive to warm and cold, and it is easier in this particular climate to grow peppers under either in a greenhouse or under a makeshift greenhouse, but with the ability to move them in September in either inside the house or in the shop during the night when we have frost. It also can extend the period. So I find that I have greater success under a makeshift greenhouse or within an actual greenhouse growing peppers than planting them just straight into the garden here where I live. So that's what we're doing. So if you take a look, the peppers grew really, really well. They're ready to go. They've been hanging out with the cucumbers underneath that makeshift greenhouse. And now it's time to transplant. So I have containers here. These ones here are just like your typical square containers you would buy a plant at like Canadian Tire. That's all I'm using. They're about 4 cups. In size, or 1 liter in size. They're not huge. Peppers do not have a big root base, so they do not need a big container. The key thing is when you water, you fertilize at the same time, and I will go over that a bit later. So, Ocean, here's your container, here's mine. So these ones here, I actually have flats for, and I'll show you that here.
There was a moth in mine.
So I have flats for these particular ones, which makes it really nice for moving them. I used them in the greenhouse in my previous property. I actually had these lined all on shelves in the greenhouse, and I had tons of peppers growing there. So I'm going to use the same design, only underneath a makeshift one. So really, you guys, you can use milk, you know, those plastic or even You can use milk jugs, cut the top off, plant in there. You can use any kind of container. You're looking for height, at least a 4-cup height. And just be creative, look around. I mean, really, as long as you got about 4 cups of soil in depth, you will be okay. So be creative. Anyway, so we're gonna plant these in, and as Ocean and I are planting, I'm going to stop while Ocean continues to plant, and I'm going to go in depth into some things you should know if you don't have a property like mine and you need to do container gardening. So I am also going to talk about container gardening as we plant our pepper plants. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put this flat down and we're gonna fill it up with containers. As Ocean is going to fill up this container, it just makes it easier so we could put dirt in all of these pots all at once, so we can do 8 at a time. So what I want you to do, Ocean, is just fill them up with dirt while I chit chat for a moment about container gardening. Okay, so as she's filling them up and you're watching her, container gardening has its challenges, just as growing in an open garden has its particular challenges. Now, I did a lot of container growing when I lived in the city. We also had a fairly large backyard. It was about 57 feet by 32 feet. And instead of having an entire backyard of grass, we pulled all the grass up and made it into garden space. But I still needed more, and so I did a lot of tomatoes in containers. I did cucumbers, I did peas, I did peppers, I did a lot of flowers, a lot of herbs, watermelon, cantaloupe. What else did I do?
Honeydew.
Honeydew.
That was a really good one.
I did a lot of vegetables at the same time within the containers. And there's a few things that I learned along the way. The first thing you want to take into consideration when you're container gardening is the root base of the vegetable you want to grow and match the container size appropriately to that particular plant. So I'm going to give some examples. Tomato plants. They have a massive root base, don't they, Ocean?
Yes.
Like, I mean, huge.
When we were cutting them, just plant them, their roots were enormous and tangled and everything.
Exactly. So you want, I say, a minimum of a 5-gallon container per tomato plant. Okay? The other thing you want to be in consideration with tomatoes is they are heavy feeders. They need really, really rich soil, and they also need constant watering. So what I did with tomatoes is I had rocks at the bottom for drainage, mixed dirt and compost together, planted my plant, and then we had a mulch on top. So that's tomatoes. So you want a 5-gallon. Now let's go back to the peppers here for a moment. When you're doing your peppers in containers, you want to press down the dirt because this is light dirt, and you always want to press it down. So now you can add some more dirt, Ocean. So that's with tomatoes. Peppers, we went over, they only need a smaller container, 4 cups in depth of potting soil, then you will be really, really good. The other thing is if you're doing like a lettuce, radishes, that kind of plant, even a cabbage family, they don't require any more depth than a pepper plant would, but they do require constant watering, like of course like any container, but their root base isn't as big. If you're growing peas and beans, same kind of thing. You can get away with like a gallon size container or a long box container or whatever shape. You just need at least 6 to 8 inches in your depth. So kind of think about, that's the first consideration you want to think about, is the depth of the pots needed for different kind of plants. Now your melons, definitely you want at least a foot in depth in your melons and your cucumbers and your squash and your zucchini. Tomatoes, you want at least a 5-gallon pot, like a nice 5-gallon size pail. You need that depth. They got huge roots. If you're doing lettuce and radishes, cabbage family, help me out, Ocean, peas,
Corn?
yeah, corn, beans. What else is there?
Beets?
Red beets.
Carrots?
Red beets, we'll stop at red beets. You at least need a foot. Carrots, depending on the variety. If you want to do like a standard variety, you need at least a 1.5 feet depth. If you go with a smaller variety that isn't as long, you can get away with a foot of depth. So think about first what you're growing and the size of pot needed. That's consideration 1. Now let's get back to planting peppers, and then I'll go over consideration 2. Okay, we have the dirt. Now we need the plant. Okay, so here is the plants. So same kind of technique as before. You take your garden spoon here, you have your plants, and I am just going to basically go around my plant, pop it out, place 1 plant per pot, and then Ocean's gonna repeat this all over again. Okay? So give her. So consideration number 2 is microclimate. Microclimate is really overlooked. And what I mean by that is if you have a porch, so let's say this is your house here on this side, this is your porch here, and let's say you have a wall here, or maybe even a wall here, or something like that, where the sun is beaming and it hits your house, it bounces off your house and to your vegetables, and it gets trapped. So your heat is trapped within this corner on your porch or your balcony or wherever it is. Or maybe you got a fence, okay? It's not a chain link, let's say it's a boarded up fence, something like that. You're creating a microclimate. The sun beats off the fence, hitting your vegetables and pots, creating a warmer spot than the rest of your yard, and that's what we call a microclimate. Oh, that looks good. Look at this beauty. Oh, he's looking good. Okay, so microclimates are really, really suitable for your cucumbers, your tomatoes, your squash, your zucchini, your really hot loving things. Eggplant, stuff like that, that is just, they will just completely love the microclimate. But it is not favorable for your peas, for your carrots, onions, spinach, lettuce, cabbage family, red beets, those things that prefer not to be completely scorched. They prefer to have the warmth, but they don't want to have excess, or they don't want a crazy amount of heat. They want the sun to beam on them, but they also want to feel the wind in their leaves. So take a look at this guy. Look at that. Look at that. Woo! He's doing good. All right, plant him in. So that is something really important to consider as well. And a microclimate can really kill your root vegetables, but yet, you know, a lot of people are like, well, my cucumbers did good, but my root vegetables did awful. It all comes down to the microclimate and where you planted. So that's consideration number 2, what you want to do in pots. The other consideration number 3 is how you set up your pots. You need drainage, period. So these ones here, they do got drainage at the bottom. I'm going to spill a little bit, but they got drainage here at the bottom. I'm putting them in a greenhouse, or I'm putting them in a makeshift greenhouse, which means that when I know it's going to rain, I'm going to cover them. But if you can't do that, your pots better have drainage. And what I'd like to do with that is the bottom part here, like the first inch, I put in gravel. Then I'll sprinkle in sand. Then I will put the potting soil for the rest of the pot. That creates a really good drainage, so it doesn't just get waterlogged at the bottom. It has room for the water to drain out. The other thing is, with that, container planting can be really hard on your patio if the water is just pooling on your patio. It's got to have somewhere to drain. So you need to either have something underneath your pot and where you can spill it out and drain, or it can drain out. Maybe you can create a slight slope on your container so it drains off the deck, or your deck's already at a slight slope, or whatever the case is. You do not want standing water on your porch. It may rot your wood or whatever you have on your deck. So that is something to consider. The other consideration is mulch. Now, mulch in the big garden, there's a lot of controversy, and I have done layered gardening, or called lasagna gardening. I have done mulch on top of things, and I find that once you add in mulch in the garden, when you're doing it on a big scale, you are literally inviting the slugs and the snails, because what happens with mulch, they have somewhere to go, to bury into, and it's like a free-for-all smorgasbord of your plants. So I prefer to garden without the mulch. And it's two ways. The mulch really helps with the moisture, but I would rather water more than fight with slugs and lose my entire crop to them. So, but container gardening, your plants dry out really quick in containers, and because they're up from the ground, they're not as susceptible to the slug attack. So getting a nice mulch, you can use chipped trees. Go to your local garden store, find some mulch, get creative. I wouldn't use any wood chips, like a stuffing like you would use for animals. Don't do that. When I say wood chips, I mean when they chip a tree. You got those big chipper trucks. If you use, let's say, wood shavings, it actually basically mats on top of your pots, and it's too much carbon. It's not broken down, and it does the opposite. It'll choke out your plants. So you want to find something that will let the water through, but not mat on top of your pots. And there's lots available in tons of gardening stores. So I would definitely think about mulching to hold in the moisture for your pots. Other than those things, and consideration, I forget what number am I on, Ocean?
4, I think.
4, 5, whatever. Anyway, the next consideration would be staking, because you need to think about your vining plants. Now you can get seeds and plants geared to pot growing. So instead of the huge cucumbers in the garden, you can buy bush cucumbers or bush zucchini or smaller pumpkins or smaller melons, or there are smaller carrots, rounder red beets. It's stuff that don't need as much depth. You can definitely do, and some things won't need as much staking or vining, but you really want to consider, what do I need to support the plant? Maybe a pepper plant might need a simple stake. Well, a tomato may need a tomato cage or some other system. Well, a watermelon is maybe on a rack system or something like that, or a vining system. So it's really, you got to really pay attention to what plant you are growing, match the pot, match a support system needed for each particular plant, and understand each particular plant's needs. Now, my mom does container growing in the city as well, because we moved from the farm, and she has the same problem with her her cabbage plants, as I do here out in the country, she covers them with fabric too so the moths don't eat them. So she has, you know, a system where she can cover them with a piece of fabric. So you really need to think about these things and figure out what works best for you. Take a look at your microclimate, watch the sun like we do with our big gardens, but be sensitive to what your plants need. And don't do the same thing for every plant. Don't plant all your plants in one area in direct sunlight where it's perfect for cucumbers but not so great for spinach. So I hope that gives you some ideas. I know that's a lot to think about when it comes to container gardening, but really it's what I think about when I'm growing in the garden minus the pots. So and it works really well. You just like the big garden, you need to water constantly. You don't want to overwater, but you do need to water. You need to tend the garden. You need to weed your pots because weeds get in there. And just have fun with it. And you know what? If something doesn't work one year, don't give up and continue trying. Some things that I do don't work. Period. I thought it was a great idea, but realized that, hey, that was a great idea in theory, but in reality, it didn't work. And so you learn from it and then you adjust next year. The only way that you fail in gardening is when you stop trying. And I tell my kids this a lot. In anything that you do, the only reason that you failed at it is because you stopped trying. And it's really true because there's always more than one way to do something. And it's when you stop trying to find that way is when you fail at it. So if your plant dies, try it again next year in a different way. Find out why your plant died. Figure out and do it better the next year. That's how gardeners become great gardeners. Is you should hear our stories of complete and utter disasters. I've got a book full of them. Things that I've learned. But because I got back up and I tried a different method and I didn't just stop, I've learned so much more than any book could have ever taught me. And it's just that practical experience with anything. You can read and read and read on how to farm, on how to garden, but until you just dive in there with both feet, get them wet, take what you learned in theory, put it into practicality, then you will see what works and what doesn't work and continue pushing forward. So that is that is to inspire you. Look at them roots. Look at them, beautiful. And Ocean, you are doing a wonderful job here. Want some help now?
Sure.
I am going to help you now that I am.
I'm one plant away from my second tray.
Excellent. Ocean, you're doing awesome. These are looking really good. So let's give them a close-up look here. Take a look at that. Okay, so these will really kick off here. And they're just in a perfect stage to plant, to transplant. So just Ocean, you continue.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a watering can.
Yep.
And we're going to water them in.
Means water.
Yeah.
Right, second tray done.
Now, as we're talking about watering, there is a trick that I do with peppers. And do you remember what they are, Ocean?
No.
Do you remember?
It's been a while since.
Yeah, it's been a little while, hey? So let's fill this up here. And the trick is duck poo or goose poo. Basically, when I'm gonna water my pepper plants, I go to the bird run, and that's a pretty big bird run.
Yep.
And I find where they were sleeping overnight. And where they were sleeping is where they are going to poo. Then I take a little, what we nicknamed the poo shovel, and I scoop up Oh, probably about a couple of tablespoons of fresh poo, duck or goose. I mix it into my watering can, and then I water all my peppers with it and fertilize them every single time, and I've had the most beautiful peppers every time I do that. And if you don't have access to that, you can buy liquid fertilizer, but on the farm here I do, and I really use that, and it makes the most beautiful plants ever. I'm going to stress something here. You only do that with waterfowl. You never want to grab chicken manure, horse manure, cow manure, turkey manure, etc., because you will burn out your plant. This only works with the waterfowl. Anyway, continue going, Ocean. I'm gonna go get a watering can.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm gonna water these in. Now the other thing to remember when you're container planting, in that case, whether it's container planting or not, you never want to water your plants with chlorine water. So, because chlorine can stunt to kill your plants. So you want to make sure that it's chlorine free. We have dugout water. In town, when I was container gardening, we saved all our rainwater, and that served well. So you want to consider what you have access to with water. Whatever you do, do not water with chlorinated water. Now, in this first watering, I don't have any fertilizer because there's enough in the potting soil. I'll start doing that in about 2 weeks, and I'll start doing the fertilized water. But for the first week or two here, it's just going to be straight dugout water, which too has lots of nutrients in it, because guess who swims on the dugout? The ducks and the geese. So there's a lot of good nutrients in that dugout water as well. So continue on there, Ocean. I'm just going to water these in.
We're going to have 3 extra plants.
That's fine. We'll just put them in the tray, in another tray. So as I'm doing this, I'm just pressing them down so the dirt is packed firmly around these plants. And Ocean, again, you are doing such a good job.
Thank you.
Ocean has been gardening with me since she's learned how to walk. All my kids have. And, oh, you're missing a root.
That's a huge root.
And it's the best. You know, she's turning what? What are you turning?
12.
You're turning 12 this year.
August.
You're turning 12 this year. And in all honesty, she is totally capable of planting a garden in without Mom, because she has seen it year after year after year, and every year she's capable of doing more things and understanding, and it's been just a really big help. I mean, all my children, they're always gardening with me, and it's something that is really important to teach your children. And they thrive on it. They don't like weeding. I know weeding isn't very much fun. But it comes with the package, doesn't it?
Yep.
You know, I weeded the garden too. And you know what? I'll tell you a little story while I water here. My mom, growing up, she told me to go water the celery row. We had celery growing up north, and my mom this was like her prize row, okay? And she said I was about your age, Ocean.
Okay.
And I mean, I've been gardening forever with my mom too, right?
Yep.
And I said no problem. And so I weeded that row, and my dad had always told me, you know, whenever you pull a weed, you make sure you always get the roots, right?
Yep.
Well, I came in the house. It was about an hour or so later. I was so happy with myself. Mom, I weeded your celery, but man, there wasn't many celery plants. And she looked at me, she's like, what do you mean there wasn't many celery plants? And I said, well, there wasn't. that many. So she dashed out to the garden with me, and her mouth open, and she gasped. I had weeded out her celery. So I had pulled all her celery plants out. And I felt so bad. Oh my goodness, I felt horrible. But because I listened to my dad, you always get the weed, always get the roots. We were able to plant in all the celery. And let me tell you, for the next week, every morning, every afternoon, every evening, I made sure those little plants were watered and taken care of, because I felt so bad about pulling out all her celery. And we ended up having a wonderful celery crop at the end. And I was nicknamed the celery killer for a while at the house. Anyway, so needless to say, the meaning of the story is that let your kids help, even if they yank out all your prized celery plants. Let the kids help, because that's how they learn. And I'll never forget, my mom was not very happy, but she wasn't exceptionally mad. We planted the plants in, we babied them, and life went on. So
I need one more plant.
so I still, to this day, still never lived down that story.
This is the last pepper plant I'm
So
gonna
we're
plant
going to continue here. We're going to plant the last few, or Ocean's going to plant the last few pepper plants. Then we're going to head into the garden. We're going to pull the rebar loop out of the zucchini. We're going to take the plastic, and then we're going to set it up over here. Now in the background here you can see the blackberries, but we got all this open empty space, and I'm going to make a makeshift greenhouse right here. Okay, so we are at the zucchinis. Take a look. This is a sneak peek before we do the garden tour. I'll zoom in on these. Look at their size. So take a look at them. They're huge. Ocean, spread out your hand compared to those leaves. Look at them, how much they grew. And same with the other ones. I mean, they're all doing fantastic.
They're spicy.
So this is 1 week and 4 days, Ocean, of growth.
Really?
It is insane. So that's a little sneak peek of what you're up for when we do the actual tour. So first of all, we need to get the rebar off and the plastic, Ocean, and then we're gonna move it to where the peppers are going. Okay, we are here in our patch. Like I said before, that over here we have 10 blackberries, and for growing blackberries in northern Alberta, Canada, we are in a zone basically 2. We can get away with 3, but we're better off with zone 2. So we're super cold. This is the 3rd year, and these are actually going to flower this year. It is crazy. And what I might swing is, after we do this, since we're in the orchard, I'll show you some orchard plants. Now, we planted the orchard 3 years ago, so maybe we'll show you some really cool things that is happening. And of course there is some losses, there's some challenges, but at the same time, there's some really cool things happening. So Ocean, are you ready to set this up?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay, so you can see that we're putting the peppers underneath this hoop. Now, for at least a month, we're going to be closing it up every single evening, opening it up every single morning. Unless there's horrible weather, it will not be open at all. So we want growth fast, and high humidity and warm sun. This here gets a lot of awesome sun, and so we're just going to show you what it would look like when we close it up, and then we're going to reopen it. So this is just for demonstration purposes. So we close it up. We would have rocks on each side here holding it tight, and we've created a very simple greenhouse. So for right now, we're going to use some big rocks to secure the plastic from, let's say if there's a light breeze, from blowing around. Otherwise, the peppers are planted. That part is done. We are 100% planted now in the garden, and now it's maintenance up into the harvesting. So we're gonna just leave our little mess in the orchard here for a moment, and I'm gonna take you for a tour. So let's start with the tour of the orchard. So I'm just going to, there's the Haskell. I'm gonna just give you a quick overview of what it looks like. And now let's go plant by plant. So let's start with the blackberries, Ocean. Right there, the big one there. I'll show them some blossoms. So take a look. These ones are blackberries. And this plant is a really good example here. Those are little blossoms or buds, and I am like tickled pink, and so are my kids. I've never had a fresh blackberry in my life.
Those are fresh leaves.
And anything that is fresh always tastes better. So they're doing really, really well. Ocean, then we'll start with the grapes and circle our way. I lost 2 grape plants in this particular corner. I assume because it stays too wet and it gets too much filtered sun. As soon as the grape plants start here, they start coming. Now, unfortunately, we've had some really bad years with weather. Nothing to do with the grape plants or anything, it has all to do with weather. The first winter after I planted them in, we had a month and a half of minus 44 Celsius to minus 52 Celsius for a month and a half. I'm not joking. And it literally killed the grapes back to the rootstock. Then the following summer, we had literally 0 sun. I'm not joking either. It was the worst summer I've ever seen in my entire life. And we had hardly any growth. So this year they all came back from the rootstock. They have grown more in 1 month this summer than they did in the last 2 summers. That's because the weather this year is so much more favorable. So I'm hoping for grapes. And they are, look, this is another grape plant. Beautiful. Okay. This is a plum tree coming, which he's doing really well. Lots of growth. Remember, these are the rows that we did when I was pregnant. We just slapped something to cover and boards. And I'm going to show you what we did over here, how well it looks. We're going to do the same technique over here. We just have not done it yet. This is a Canada plum. We had winter kill. This whole side here died, but it's coming back. And when you're planting plants in my zone, you have to expect winter kill. You have to. It's just, that's how it goes. This is a brand new planted Fort McMurray tree that I'm going to stake up. We just ordered new fruit, apple trees, because all of our apple trees died because of that miserable winter and summer. So again, here's another grape plant. Doing absolutely phenomenal, considering that they've only been growing since May to June here, 1 month since spring has hit. This is a pear tree. Again, winter kill, but it's surviving. So we got a lot of work to do in this orchard, but it's coming. This is a pear tree. It did a lot of winter kill, but it's coming back above where they grafted, so it'll be still viable to produce really nice pears. Okay, Ocean, You go find me some wonderful strawberry blossoms over there.
Okay.
We just planted this apple tree. This is a September ruby apple. This particular apple tree is always grown in Alaska. So that's why I'm planting it here. As you can see, this bed is what the other bed should look like. We maintained this bed this year, and we planted little baby strawberry plants, runners that we could find. So this particular bed won't produce any fruit until next year because those are all new runners. We have a new apple tree here. I can't remember what this one's called. It's called End of the Line 922. Is actually founded in Fort Mac or Fort McMurray, which is another 4 hours, I think, north of here. They stumbled over this apple tree and they've been doing cuttings off of it and graftings, and it is super hardy to our zone, and so that's why I also ordered it. Now look at these strawberries. Ocean, just back up a little. Look at them. These were the original strawberries that we had planted. I actually pulled up all that fabric because what I found was it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So I pulled it back. We edged the row about another 2 or 3 inches on each side, cleaned it up, and this is how I want all my rows to look like. Every basically fruit tree, strawberry patch, fruit tree, strawberry patch, fruit tree, you get the point. And they are loaded.
Look, Mom, there's a strawberry right
Oh,
here.
there, Ocean just found a strawberry.
And there's another one over here.
And what I find is without the fabric, there's less slugs as well. And we put fresh manure on these in the spring. And
Here.
let me tell you, we are going to have,
Mom?
Yeah, I see that. We are going to have a strawberry explosion. And this is what I wanted. So instead of having grass in between my rows, we're having strawberry plants. And that's a lot because there's 15 to 20 feet.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. 15 to 20 feet between each plant, between each fruit tree. So that's a lot of space. That is basically, let's go 20 feet for the sake of easier counting. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140 feet. That's 140 feet row of strawberry. Plus we're doing 2 strawberry plants side by side. So anyway, take a look. This is how they should be. They're doing awesome. And I'm really happy about that. So when we are on maintenance here, I hope in a couple of weeks, we will start on the next row. So that's this part of the orchard. The elderberries are coming. It's really hard to see on the screen, but there you go. These are the elderberries. This is a test, as I don't know if they're going to actually have a long enough season to produce fruit. If not, I'll use their buds. But I'm really hoping, because guess what I see right here? Do you see that? There is flower buds. So let's pray that we have a long enough season for elderberries. Right, there is buds. This is the first year. Oh my goodness, I just noticed that. This is the first year there's buds. There's more buds. And right here. Oh my goodness, look at that. And here. Oh, this is a gardener's delight. Okay, so we got buds. Come on, let's use some fruit. Okay. This is a plum chum. This is more of a bush than a tree. So, and it has blooming for the first time this year.
Right here.
It is now what? It would be on its 3rd or 4th year. So we may have fruit this year, but we may not for surely next year. Okay, the hascups. I have basically bought like 7 hascups a year. I want a total of 49 hascups. This year I haven't bought any because I had so much other things to catch up from being pregnant and breastfeeding and having a little baby. It's a lot of catch up. And Ocean, find me some fruit, please.
This one's really good.
And these first 4 are a little bit older than the other ones. And we have fruit on them. And they are loaded this year. They bloomed like I'd never seen before, and I am thrilled. So I'm going to do a little bit of experiments this year with cuttings, as they are a honeysuckle family, in the honeysuckle family. But we'll see how it goes. But they are looking really good. These ones were planted last year. This particular row I did last year. So we'll see what happens with the cuttings. If everything looks good, then I will be doing another few rows next year.
There is, I think, some fruit on this one. Yep, there's.
Okay, so the other thing that we did was when we ordered the apple trees, we ordered Zone 2 hazelnuts. So these are bushes, and they are hazelnut bushes for the north. So I'm hoping that right here, and we have one right there, and one over there, that, you know, in 5 years, we can have some fresh hazelnuts. How about that? That was a little surprise for my family, as I kind of just swung that with the order. I thought, you know, I have a little bit more space. Let's do that. So let's get into the garden. Okay, cucumbers. Look at them. They grew fantastic. They're growing really good. And they're really growing leaps and bounds. Let's take a look on the other side of the tunnel here. So this side, you can see them a little better. So they're growing really good. Now they're really going to kick off. So that's the cucumbers. Right beside the cucumbers is the radishes. And you can see right there, you can see the where am I pointing it? You can see the true leaves coming. I mean, they have literally doubled in size easily. They're doing really good. We have some lettuce right over there coming, and some more lettuce down this row. This row needs weeding. Now, when it was raining, I literally picked 3 or 4 rows that I knew needed to be done, and other rows that waited. Now, with weeding, we kind of freed some of the lettuce. We freed some of the lettuce right here. You can see it right here, just to free it up. While I left the side weeds, we will get that in a couple of days when the ground dries up, then we'll just rake them over. But I had to free up as weeds grow faster than my garden vegetables. I had a really good question. Take a look at this flower while I talk for a second. I had a really good question about why do I want to weed dandelions out of my garden? Because technically, they're really not that bad, so why weed them out? Well, there's a really simple answer for that. And I really have nothing against dandelions. Their roots go really deep in the ground. They pull minerals up for other plants to use, and they really aren't that bad. But what they do is, if you take a look at a dandelion plant, so let's take a look at a dandelion plant. Look how big it is. Okay, so if I have my lettuce plants trying to grow here, and this big plant is spread out, they literally choke and kill out everything. And that's really devastating. So when you're trying to garden, you want to have at least the least amount of weeds as physically possible. Otherwise, you might as well just be growing weeds instead of vegetables, because they just overtake. So that's why. I have hundreds of dandelions. I'm on an acreage. I'm on a farm. They're everywhere. But there is a place for them. Okay, now dill. Dill wasn't up when I filmed last time, and it is. And like I said, it looks like carrots, and you can see that it does. It kind of looks like little grass seeds, and so the dill is coming up strong. So welcome to the garden, my little dill plants. This is the test spot, and look at the size of those cabbages now. Like, they have totally just sprung to life. Even the marigolds beside it, they're doing like fantastic. I did hoe this just before it rained, so I was on top of the weeds on this row. And you know what? There's always going to be weeds in the garden. Control the weeds as best as you can, because there's always going to be them. But and you'll see that, I mean, we tried to do a job of controlling them, but we got so much stuff happening that we really try to control the ones in the rows, get them under control. So this spot looks really good. Okay, so let's do, while I'm on this angle, take a look at the tomatoes. Now the tomatoes are all these rows right here. Remember, they looked kind of sad last time. They really did. But they have made a comeback. I mean, look at this. These that were purple and kind of shrivelly, or new growth is just beautiful. I mean, look at the transformation. They're gonna grow super quick now. And again, with the weeding here, we're just hoeing around them. We're just hand hoeing around everything. Look at the beautiful. And anyway, there's tons of them. There's tons of them. And they are doing fantastic. So those are the tomatoes. And then we have the beans. The beans were just starting to germinate. This row is beans. Beautiful beans coming. Okay, beautiful. Look at all them. So I do notice a slight problem though. That is a bit of an irritation. Is I have some sprouts that look like this. Okay, this is not good. We got a strong sprout here, so I know it's not cutter bugs. We got a really good root base, okay? But there is no false leaves. These leaves provide nourishment to the plant. It needs these leaves to grow. Now, I have also seen plants survive, so I'm not going to just pull this out, but something in the ground ate the leaves before they opened up. So that means that there is some kind of little maggot or worm that is eating my sprouted beans before they pulled up their heads. Now, they didn't get everything, which is good, but I do notice some spots where there is nothing. Okay, so take a look at this little dude. Right here, look at the leaf, very little. You know, only a little remained. So I'm not too sure which bug it is, but if you go through the beans, you can see the damage. You know, every once in a while, there is one that its leaves are eaten right off. Take a look right there again. Okay, so if you guys got any more information about that, I'm seeing it right here again, and right there again is something. Now I don't know exactly what, but I'm very sure that it's a worm of something, of some kind. The name of the worm is left unknown. So if you got any opinions about that, send me a message and I will look it up. This row in particular is hit harder. Now this bean plant has 3 leaves instead of the typical 2. How cool is that? But you see here, this bean here is no leaf. This one looks like it's coming with no leaf. Again, these ones here, but this one's coming with no leaf. These ones are okay. There's bad germination in between here, whether that is bad germination or the bean actually being killed. This one here again is only a half a leaf. Okay, so we got a problem here this year in the garden. How to rectify? I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head what I'm going to do, but I would like to first find out what crazy worm is doing it, so I'm going to do a little research on that myself. Holy man, you guys, look at this! Like, can you see that on the screen? I sure hope you can. This is my kale. It is growing like a weed. Now there's some water on here. See if I shake it off so you guys can see this better. It's still heavy. Still not warm enough. Like, look at this. It is actually, you know, quadrupled in size. It is doing fantastic in here. And so what is the difference? So take a look at these ones. These are the same cabbage plants that I planted in the test spot without the fabric. So what is the difference? My hypothesis that I am going to make the difference between these rows and the size of vegetables underneath this fabric compared to the test spot that is not covered has to do with the sun, the filtration of the sun. That's the only thing I could come up with, because the water, it comes right through here. It may be maybe also that you know, because of all the driving rain, it didn't get as much, you know, driving rain on it, but I don't really think that has anything to do with the cabbage. I think it has a lot to do with the fabric and the filtering of the sun. Now, they're both in sunny locations, and I did that very purposely to keep that as a constant. The only difference is that these guys, this fabric provides a filter. And normally you don't want a filtered sun with most vegetables, but with cabbage family you do, because they hate hot. They don't like it. So if they get warmth with a little bit of filtered sun, they are like jumping for joy. So I think that has a lot to do with it, because they get a ton of light, but it's just that slight filtration that I think is making all the difference. If you have any other thoughts why these are doing so much better in my underneath the fabric than they are out in the open, let me know. Remember, we did the exact same thing with each row. We did the exact same manure. We did the exact same preparation. We planted out of the exact same pots. We did everything the same. Let me know what you think. Okay, the carrot rows. You can see it from here. It's kind of look cool. You can see the carrots growing. Okay, we had weeded this before the rain hit, and I'm very happy we did, because they were being choked out already. So the two rows that we did were the red beet rows right here. Okay, that we did before or while the rain was happening, and you can see all the weeds on the ground right there. But what we did was I left a spot open. What I did was I left a spot open, so this is what the row looked like. So when we came out, this whole row looked like that. This whole thing. It was kind of scary. That's pretty daunting, isn't it? So what we did was we hand-picked in between the rows. Okay, and we found our red beets. Okay, so we got some red beets right here. We pulled the weeds, just like that. We pulled them, so my kids went ahead of me and they did the pulling. Then I took a small rake. I even took a little spoon, and I just started raking the sides and pulling them. So it was teamwork on getting this cleaned up, and we're gonna have to hoe it again, but at least it moved the weeds further away from the plants so the plants could really grow. This is the corn, looking really, really good. It's doing really well. It's really picking up. So I'm happy with that. These here are the pumpkins. We're to the point where we need to take the plastic away because they're gonna start to vine. You can see that they're sending out their little, I call them their little feelers, or their little hands coming out. So they really do need to have the infrastructure of the plastic taken down and the racks being put up. So they're doing fantastic. This is the marigold bed, doing perfectly fine. Again, everything just had a really good growth spurt. And of course the zucchini, you guys. We looked at that a little more in depth earlier in the video. And these here, oh my word, while we're walking by, take a look. This is Saskatoons. You see all those berries? They are loaded this year. Last year we got nothing. Absolutely nothing, because we had no sun. And what I mean by that, I really do mean that. We had no berries. This year it's going to be loaded. you can take a look at these guys. They're doing really well. They're a little bit more behind, but again, for how behind they were, they're having a really good growth spurt. Okay, as I exited out of the yard, guess who entered my garden? My guinea fowl. Now, don't fret. These guinea fowl are like my best garden friends. They may trample a little bit, but they don't do much damage, and they're not looking to eat my garden. They're looking for nasty bugs, and these guys are awesome for doing that, and they will literally walk all over the garden and start eating bugs. So go ahead, my guineas, and eat away. They're insectivorous, so they have no problem with eating ants and maggots and worms, and they can just have a time of their life. Now, I forgot one thing on my tour, and I'm just going to do it right now before I do my racks, is the peas. How did I forget about you guys? Oh my word, they like totally grew. It's like everything else. Take a look. They they're ready to vine, but of course the fence is a little ways away. So what I'm going to do is wait till they're a lot bigger. Then on these posts right here and the far post right over there, I'm going to put basically like a piece of twine and push them towards the fence so they get on the fence. It's going to take a little training, but we'll get there. So the peas are doing absolutely phenomenal. They're the ones that are beside the corn, and I showed you the corn earlier, but for some reason I missed the peas. So the guineas brought me back to the garden because I thought that would be pretty cool to show you guys, and to show you also the pea row. So let's do a update on the herbs. The marjoram, as you can see, is looking pretty good. It hasn't grown a whole lot. We've had a ton of rain, and herbs, yes, they do like moisture. They don't like a ton of it, so this heat should do them well. On the other hand, take a look at all the new green on the chamomile that wasn't doing so well. If you look, you can see all the new green coming. So what happened was the first leaves died, but the new growth came from the roots, and just like I thought, we now have them coming back with all new growth. And take a look at some of these right here. You can see the green, and you can see how well they have come back from death, sort of speaking. So I'm really happy about my chamomile. Again, the parsley isn't looking too bad. It suffered a little bit because we had a lot of rain. And like I said, herbs are a little more touchy. So they'll come back with a little more heat. I would like to see them a little darker green than what they are. They're a little pale than what I like, but that's okay. So I'm really impressed that my awesome chamomile here has come back so green. The thing is, my marshmallow plant, look at it grow. So this week my husband and I need to build those supports. We need to set up those supports, get rid of the tomato cage, and let it grow into a beautiful plant. And I love marshmallow plant. It has got to be probably one of my favorites. And once it starts blooming, you'll definitely know why. It's beauty, its elegance, and also for its medicinal uses. It's one of my go-to herbs when it comes to a serious need to pull out and clean a wound, in controlling a really deep cut, in pulling the skin together. It is just an unbelievable herb when it comes to, let's say you scraped all your skin off and you have your wound completely dirty. You place this herb on it, and it literally overnight will pull all the dirt out, so you don't have to scrape it. I've got stories with that with the kids. So this is just a fantastic herb also on top of it. Plus the flowers are edible. It pretties up some salads. All in all, I'm just in love with the marshmallow plant. Okay, the shelves are in, and you can see how simple that was. And I just want to thank you to Ocean Orion for giving me that extra hand. And if you want to see the results of why I do the rack system, I'm going to place a video right here, and you can see my spaghetti squash with this rack system. And I am doing the same system with my pumpkins and my butternut squash. So now we're going to move over to the butternut squash. We're going to remove the plastic. We're going to remove the tomato cages. We're going to put in the rack, or we're going to put in the shells. I thought maybe I would do that in about a week, but since we have the shelving already in the garden, we're just going to do the butternut squash too. There you have it. We have covered a lot of material in this particular episode. So I want everybody to continue having fun in their gardens, and I will see you on the next video.